You know, she's wonderful. She shares her home with kids and a pointer and now a Chihuahua, thanks to Arizona. Yes, a Chihuahua, yes. And she's a good sport. She just fits right in, and she's playful, and she's a great dog. They're just fun to live with. They're just, you know, as Betsy has described in the past, they're kind of like big cats sometimes, just lounging around your house, and they look so pretty when they do.
Hi, I'm Ann, and this is Jackson. Jackson is about 2 years old, 2.5 years old. He's an unsuccessful racer. I think I saw his track record, and it was he trailed in most of his races. He only raced 10 or 12 times. And lucky for him, I've heard that the smart ones do that. I have another one at home who is very, very shy, so I didn't bring him along. This is Mr. Social. He enjoys going out and about, meeting people. We live with a cat and 2 teenage girls. He's just as happy as can be when anybody comes home. He's very enthusiastic. He's completed Family Dog 1 fairly. We may have to do it again, but I think he's willing. He enjoys the whole process. He likes going for rides in the car and walks out in the open space. Playing with Cindy, of course, she gets to meet and greet everybody. But I think one word that hasn't been used to describe greyhounds is grateful. And I think you'll all agree. They're so grateful to come home. Thank you, Leanne.
Laura. I'm Laura. And she's just over 10 years old. We've had her for about 1.5 years. So she was on the track for 6 years, ran over 250 runs, races, handed placing every time. So she's got a princess attitude, so that's why we're not up on the stage. But she lives with 2 cats quite successfully, and yeah, she's great. It's nice for apartment living because they don't move, they don't bark. They're very good.
Laura, tell us what she was doing from the time that she was graded off the track.
Right, so they also bred her for 2 years before we got her. So she's been put through the mill.
Thanks, Laura. Anyway, so that's a little bit of background on see here, and let me just give you some numbers that are a little more up to date as compared to what you saw there in the tape. The tape was filmed in the early 1990s, and that is probably when greyhound racing was at its peak in this country. Roughly 40,000 dogs being destroyed every year. Fortunately, the numbers have dropped. I even went back and looked at my notes from when I first started giving talks about dog racing, and at that time, there were 48 dog tracks that were active in this country, and now there are 35. So even though it's still barely viable, there has been some decline, which of course we're all very glad about. And the numbers of dogs that are being destroyed every year, of course, has declined also. There's no tracking of this. There's no real way of knowing, because when dogs are registered as puppies when they're 3 months old, they may be registered to race, but there's no tracking what happens to them once they come off the track. So numbers are always an estimate, but the guess is that perhaps now only about 10,000 dogs are destroyed every year. And that number is, the majority of that number would be racers. But some of that number is also puppies, because as you saw, a little bit of at least, these dogs are pretty much bred on farms that are out in the middle of nowhere. There's no real oversight to speak of, and what happens is when these puppies show no tendencies towards racing, towards speed, towards whatever it takes to become a viable racing dog, they kill the puppies, essentially. Once in a while, rescue organizations are able to get their hands on puppies. In fact, we have some right about now, although not through that source necessarily, but through Greyhound Friends for Life, the group that I volunteer with. But puppies are kind of a rarity. Probably most of the greyhounds that you see out and about, if you see them, are racing dogs. So the numbers have dropped, but you know, nobody will be satisfied until dog racing is gone altogether. The other thing that has risen since that tape was filmed is the number of rescue groups in this country. There were virtually none, say, around 1990. Nobody really knew about the truth behind dog racing. Now there are probably over 300 rescue organizations in this country alone. Some of those are individuals who bring a few dogs in each year into their home and place them, and others of them are much more extensive organizations with, you know, a large reach and a number of volunteers who work with them to bring the dogs in and so forth. So there is some decline, but the industry is very much still viable, especially in certain states like Florida. The interesting thing about all of this is that it really is, there has been a change in the demographic, therefore a change in the interest in gambling. Gambling will probably persist as long as human beings persist. But where people are choosing to spend their gambling dollars is changing. And there's kind of this unlikely alliance between greyhound rescue organizations and the Indian gaming casino industry, because the gaming casinos are coming on and the interest in the dog racing is falling away. And so you have both of these interests wanting to see the eventual end of dog racing. But meanwhile, what you have in states are the people in the industry trying to prop up these tracks by trying to bring in slot machines, gaming tables, other forms of gambling that they can bring into the dog tracks. And there are advocacy organizations, two in particular, who really work to try to educate people to prevent this kind of thing from happening.